The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff and management of WWDB-TV.
Y'all ready for this?
Ready. Booyah. We are back. It is Wednesday, September 12th, 6 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And as host, I'm flying solo tonight. But it means it's time for another installment of Southern Nevada Sports News coming to you from WWDBTV.com. My name is Bill Miller, host tonight of the show, as my co-host, friend, colleague, road dog, homeboy, Jeff Belknap, and the very lovely Mrs. Kimberly Belknap. It is her birthday, and Jeff and the missus are going out. Happy birthday, Kimberly. And Jeff, you did the right thing, my man. Well done. Well done. So with me in studio tonight. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Hey, listen, Jeff's no fool. I mean, he's been around. Yeah, so, yeah, we know our bread is buttered. With us, of course, on the engineering, the honcho himself, John Stiles. John, as always, thank you. And as you can see, I'm not alone here. So I'd like to really thank Mr. Victor Perea of 702 HSFB High School Football for joining me as in-studio co-host and then coming in to bring us up to speed on high school football, as it is now in full swing in Clark County and the state of Nevada in general. How you doing, Victor?
I'm doing well, and thank you for having me again. And I'm not tall enough to be Jeff, but I'll do my best.
Well, listen, man, appreciate it. And needless to say, to reach out to these guys and listen, if you really want to find out the 411 on high school football here in Southern Nevada and Clark County, it's 702 HSFB, high school football. Very simple. That is for the website,
Yep.
Which is very informative, as well as their Twitter handle. And, we were just speaking before we went on, because I was asking him, well, is that for Instagram? And the other, he goes, no, that's it. And it's tough enough to manage as it is.
Yeah, we're real fortunate that there's a lot of people. Obviously, it's not Texas, but we have a lot of people that are, informed and proud of their alma mater, or they have kids or relatives that play on high school football teams.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of people keeping in touch, and just making sure, we try to make sure we post highlights of kids that are trying to get recruited. So between that and the noteworthy, newsworthy stuff, it's a full-time gig.
Well, before we descend on to local happenings here in terms of prep football, this past weekend was opening season for the NFL.
Sure was.
Week 1, and some real surprises and some not so surprising.
Yeah.
But I got to throw out there the biggest surprise of all has got to be, and this goes out to my our buddy George Jorge Mish in Cleveland, the tie with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I didn't even check. Is this the first time there's ever been a tie in Week 1?
In Week 1, maybe. I know we've had one, but it's been a long time. But I guess if you're Cleveland, you'll celebrate.
You'll celebrate, yes.
You have to celebrate.
That's it.
Yeah, shout out to Sean Porter, world champion, just won Saturday. He's from Cleveland, and they celebrated that Cleveland tie. I was almost going to say that Cleveland win, but that they celebrated breaking that streak. So shout out to Ohio.
It looked like the new coaches, it was a difficult start, 0-7 for the new coaches. And, maybe it's in a good thing that Jeff isn't here tonight because, I wouldn't necessarily give him a hard time about the Lions Monday night game, but tough start out for Matt Patricia.
Yeah, well, you know what? If you turn on and watch the beginning of the game, it was great.
Oh, hey.
If you walked away after that first couple plays.
First play.
The first play. Yeah,
first pass.
Play, yeah, that's right.
The beginning of the Sam Darnold era and New York Jet first pass, pick 6.
Yeah.
So you got to be thinking, if you're a Jet fan, oh God, we got a long season, and if you're a Lions fan, there's no place to go but
You can exhale at that point.
Hey,
you think
we're
you're
here.
good.
And then it just all kind of went. Donald, and to his credit, certainly found his poise, relaxed, and played his game. And unfortunately, just for the Lions, I mean, just anything that could go wrong went wrong.
Yeah, and I don't personally have an NFL team, but I root for any team that has a local product on there. And the Lions actually have two: Miles Killebrew, who went to Foothill High School,
Foothill,
and then Tyrell
right.
Crosby, who went to Green Valley. And yeah, it was unfortunate to see for them, but it's week one.
It is. It's week one. So for people out there, come down off the ledge. It's the season is still early. And there's no reason to panic. There were just a couple of big surprises. Talking to we had our NFL special last week. And George, one of the teams he picked to go do very well and to actually end up in the Super Bowl was the New Orleans Saints. And the team that we actually picked to finish at the bottom of that division was Tampa Bay. And they managed to put 48 points up on the Saints. And meanwhile, the Saints put 40 on Tampa Bay. So I'm just not sure if these guys were playing with 10 men on D most of the night. And the referees just didn't decide to flag them. But 84 points.
Yeah, that's,
come on. That's
I don't know what the over was on that one, but
well, we know
I doubt
that
it was 84.
I doubt if it was anywhere near that.
that.
Yeah, and it's and I'm sure as far as the D coordinators, they must have just absolutely got blasted. But the Rams came out and looked like everybody thought that they would look like. Other than that, there was the Thursday night game turned out to be a real tight one between Philadelphia and Atlanta.
Yeah, the broadcast got a bit of criticism, but the game itself wasn't
too
painful.
bad. Yeah. So it's but again, folks, relax. It's week one.
Unless you're Cleveland, then calm down. They didn't win the Super Bowl
Just
yet.
settle down. Don't schedule that parade in. But we all agree that Cleveland is a much improved team.
Absolutely.
And they are not going to, we don't believe that they will necessarily finish last in that division. And I see them actually, maybe being a 500 team, if not better. That division is a cannibalistic division.
Yeah.
They feed off of each other. But you're not going to have that patsy that you just simply can pencil in
That's
2
not
wins.
going to be your 2-win team right there, or 2-win guarantee for you for playing them.
Yeah. So but you're not much. You don't have an NFL team per
Right.
se.
Right.
Where'd you grow up?
Out here, actually, I was born in Mexico, but grew up out here. Went to, as I always put an asterisk on it. Went to Old Bishop Gorman on Maryland Parkway.
I know where that's. Yeah, I remember where it used to be.
Yes.
The old
So,
blue and white.
Slightly different than the current campus.
Just a tad.
Just a tad.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
Yeah. No, so it's always really, I like the Dolphins just because of Dan Marino and Ace Ventura, but other than that, I never had a home team to root for the NFL, and now I'm having a dilemma whether I root for the Raiders or not.
Well, I find they're typically because of all the transplants here.
Yeah.
They generally will have a team that they brought with them, so to speak.
Yeah.
I grew up an LA Ram fan. Grew up in LA.
Yeah.
But an LA Ram fan. When they moved to Anaheim, it was tough enough to swallow, but still a Ram fan. When they moved to
St.
Louis, it was it. And I adopted the Tampa Bay Bucks then because they had these hideous orange creamsicle uniforms.
Weren't a fan
right?
of those? Not a lot of people like those.
And but I was a huge fan because I wanted a team to root for, and at that time they were the worst team. Sam Weiss, Mad Sam Weiss of the old Cincinnati Bengal fame, was their coach, and he was, it turns out, on his last year. And in the following year, they hired Tony Dungy. And things just started to turn around.
Yeah, I remember those uniforms.
Yeah.
Say Miami, we used to get a lot, especially in the early '90s. We didn't have the best looking uniforms, but we could always point to Tampa Bay and be
point
like,
north.
It could be worse.
It could be worse. This Buccaneer Bruce, grinning pirate. Yeah, it was kind of a.
It was a unique look. I don't know if that throwback jersey sells too much.
It was tough enough to find gear in L.A.
Yeah.
I literally had to, order it.
Yeah.
And but nobody could ever argue that I was jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah, true.
Until they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, then at that point.
Then it was like, oh well, you just going like, no, honest.
Yeah, nowadays the kids don't know better. They can just go on Amazon and order any jersey from anywhere.
Anything you want, anytime,
you can even
anywhere.
order an old jersey that looks like you've had it for a while, so nobody claims you just got it.
Yes, kind of beaten up. I still have an old Tampa Bay hat that I've kept. But I swore that I would root for an LA team that either moved there, other than the Chargers,
Yep.
and other than the Raiders.
Yep.
It had to be in a new franchise, but never in my wildest dreams did I envision the Rams going back home.
True.
So when
Who
they
would've
did,
thought?
yeah, I'm a Ram fan again, and looking forward to good things and going to the new stadium when it's finally.
They found a home back in your heart.
Yes, absolutely.
See, for me, it might be a little bit difficult. Nothing against the Raiders, but what the Golden Knights did, obviously, completely different sport, but really made it as they say, Vegas made, Vegas born.
Yes.
And it really encompassed the city. So I don't know how the Raiders are going to be able to come in from out of town, transplant, and make it feel like our team, But best of luck.
It's going to be a tough act to follow.
True.
Just simply based on the success of the Knights.
Yeah.
Because that was really a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence. And I don't know if they'll make it back to the Stanley Cup Finals, but I believe they'll absolutely make the playoffs. They're going to absolutely be a tough team to deal with. And it's just a great way for them to settle in at a very difficult time.
Yeah.
Right after the shooting, and they really managed to galvanize this town.
Yeah, unfortunate, obviously, the circumstances surrounding that, but, somebody, I've been here since I was 7 years old. Horrible that happened, but the sense of community and unity that came afterwards, particularly, with the doing of the Golden Knights and everything else, it was probably the first time since I've lived here that it really felt like people were proud to be Las Vegas.
And Vegas strong meant something.
Yep, absolutely.
It absolutely meant something. But listen, the reason why you are here, of course, is to not only keep me company and make it look like we've got a bunch of people here, is to talk about high school football and the fact that it is now, this is, I believe, it's week 4 for some teams.
Yeah, week 4, so we might call it week 5. There was a week 0.
Right.
So you've got some teams that have 4 games on their belt going on their 5th. Some teams have got 2 games going on their 3rd. So depending on what your coach did for you in August, depends how far into your season you are. But we're only about a week away from, I think there's 1 league game this week, and most league games will start next week.
Okay.
So
yeah,
it's
that
about to
was
get
actually
fun.
going to be one of my questions, was when league play was going to kick into gear and it was actually going to get serious.
Yes, yeah. So this week you've got there was a bit of rearrangement, and particularly in the 4A.
Right.
This week you've got Palo Verde and Bonanza playing, and that's a league game. They're both now in the Northwest League. Bonanza was previously in the Southwest. And there was some moving around. One of the things that probably a lot of people were really excited about is instead of the what we've had historically, the sunrise and the sunset, in the 4A they did a mountain and a desert region. So instead of splitting it east and west, they split it north and south.
North and south.
So for the first time in over a decade, the winner of one side of the state final bracket, the 2 favorites on one side are going to be Liberty and Gorman, who will eliminate each other to go to the state final.
Right.
No disrespect to any of the other teams on that side of the bracket, but they're the heavy favorites. And on the other side, the winner of the mountain region will get to play the winner of the north for the other spot in the championship game, which will be, again, for the first time, not Liberty or Gorman. So obviously if you're Arbor View, if you're Faith Lutheran, if you're Desert Pines or Canyon Springs or Legacy, that excites you because now you have that opportunity to play the Northern champion and earn a spot in that state final.
Well, one of the things that that we had heard, and we were lucky to have a few coaches in before season started. Now it's obviously very difficult to get these guys in.
Yeah, they're busy.
Do the show. They're all busy, and we certainly understand why. But we kind of asked, do you miss some of those rivalries that are no longer on your schedule? That you now have to say the only way we're going to ever play this team again is during the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, on some of them, they weren't able to keep all of them intact, but I know one that just happened recently, Battle of the Bulls between Legacy and Arbor View. They were always in the Northwest. Now they're Northeast, Northwest.
Right.
They kept that rivalry, and there's a number of other ones that they're still working out. You're going to lose some. I know, like this weekend, we'll have the cleat game, which is El Dorado and Chaparral. They've played each other every year since 1973 when they opened.
Wow.
And they'll be playing again. So Chaparral had a lot of success in the 3A, and El Dorado's been trying to rebuild a program. Coach Cutts over there has been doing a great job for the Sun Devils. So that's a rivalry that's still really fun to watch and competitive, relatively competitive. You'll have, I think Chaps won it 3 years in a row, but El Dorado's not out of it. It's not like the Bone game, which a lot of people may know is the longest running rivalry in Southern Nevada, Las Vegas and Rancho. Las Vegas has won it some 2 decades in a row. It's
Oh my goodness.
sort of lost.
Kind of own it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you kind of have at that point. But I think a lot of the coaches work to try to keep some of those non-league games. Obviously, one of the things that really stuck out this year, instead of historically, particularly last decade, Gorman, Liberty, Faith Lutheran have scheduled a lot of out-of-state opponents for non-league games.
Yeah.
Arborview got on that this year, so they scheduled 3 out-of-state games, and they did pretty well going 2-1. So you're seeing that more and more, but keeping some of the rivalry games, you want to keep a non-league game to maybe schedule one of your former league foes.
Just so that you can have that, relive those games of past.
Yep.
I mean, for a lot of these kids, they're, uncles and, fathers, and in some instances, grandfathers.
Yep. Some of the most
Were
storied
part of those
ones.
rivalries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's funny how Vegas works with how much we've grown in the recent past. Where if you go to Henderson, you have generations of family that went to basic, and you might have that with the Las Vegas Academy or with Gorman.
Yeah.
But a lot of these schools that we're looking at, they've really, most of them were built in the mid 90s, early 90s, into the 2000s. So you're just now starting to get some alumni kids that are old enough to be in high school.
Yeah.
So you're starting to see a little more of that.
I mean, there are 32 schools, I believe,
Yep.
In Clark County, and Clark County is not that big. I think anybody who's ever been to Las Vegas knows, you can pretty much get from Northwest, where I live, to Henderson, probably about 40 minutes.
Yep. It used to be a lot quicker.
Yeah. 40 minutes. Now, you say that to somebody like me from L.A.
Oh, yeah. That's.
and say, yeah, all right, try go from Torrance to Van Nuys in 40 minutes.
Not
Yeah, it's just not happening.
Yeah.
You'd be lucky if you get there in a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you also touch bases on that. A lot of these schools are brand new. And in terms of brand new, maybe, 15 to 20 years old.
Correct. Yeah.
And for instance, I, both Canyon Springs and Cheyenne are on the same street, Alexander.
Yep.
And they're about maybe half a mile from each other.
Yeah.
If that, maybe 3/4 of a mile.
Yeah, man, they're pretty close.
And I think both were built in either early 2000s.
Believe Cheyenne might have been in the 90s. I remember this because my freshman year at Gorman in 98, they stomped us, and I will never
You're
forget
right.
that.
Cheyenne was, I think, 95 or 96.
Yeah,
Because my mom, when she moved here from L.A. to retire, it was just in one of those housing divisions.
Okay. Yeah.
Just a bit further west,
Yep.
off of Alexander.
Yep.
So I think she remembers when they built that high school.
Yeah, and
She
then
moved
if you
here
go over
94.
in the Northeast with, El Dorado for the longest time was kind of out there by itself, and you have Desert Pines and Sunrise Mountain,
Yeah.
and kind of pulling kids from the neighborhood. But it's for me as somebody who grew up here, and I think when I played, we had somewhere around 20 4A schools, and now even you've got some of the charter schools that have popped up around. Some of them are starting to get programs. Slam Academy in Henderson, this is their first year. They're independent. They won't be playing in the 4A, but they're playing. This is their first year with a football program, and they played a few JV teams, and they're starting to get going. Democracy Prep, which is formerly Agassiz Prep, those guys were in the 2A last year, and their first game this year they beat Coronado, which is a 4A school. And the really crazy part about that is you have Coronado, whose enrollment is somewhere around 3,100, 3,200.
Yeah.
Democracy Preps is like 350.
Wow.
So for them to pull off that upset was unexpected, but I'm sure a very nice welcome to the 3A for them. Is they're entering the 3A and they just beat a 4A team. So, but Coronado's bounced back since then. They didn't take that one.
Well, I think you're going to find some of these academies that where they have this small enrollment. Well, if you look at, for instance, in terms of basketball,
Yeah.
And then you have some of the academies locally here in the area, and it's so it's not unusual to find a small school with just a powerhouse program. But that's basketball. We're
Basketball,
looking at
yeah.
15, 18 kids. Very controlled environment in terms of that.
Yeah, football filling up the roster and filling up, especially with a lot of the schools that have smaller rosters. You have a lot of guys playing both ways, and
Yeah.
I believe not Slam Academy, Democracy Prep dressed somewhere around 26 for that game against Coronado.
Wow.
So for them, it was tough, but
Going both
it showed-
ways.
yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah, most of them definitely going both ways. From what I heard, a lot of them were cramping up, but they persevered and they got that W. So Shout out to Democracy Prep.
Outstanding.
Well deserved.
Yeah, you're not kidding. That's doing it the hard way.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about the big fish in the pond here.
Yep.
And that would be Bishop Gorman.
Yep. And I have to say, I know a couple weeks ago you guys had Ben Rowden on here, so I feel a little inadequate with his wonderful beard and this thing here.
Tell me about it.
I'm going to do my best to.
Even me. This guy, you see the beard before you see Ben.
Yeah, Ben is just so he's a great guy though. But so Gorman, as everybody knows, dynasty those last 10 years, they still have a lot of talent. I think this is one of the things that a lot of people might just if they're not super familiar with high school football, might look at that first game score 42-0 loss to Mater Dei, or the following week when they lost to Centennial Arizona, and say, oh man, they're done with. Well, when you're a 3-time national champion and you've been in the top 25 for most of the last decade, it's a really high bar to set.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt they're definitely not they don't have the depth or the overwhelming talent that they've had in some of these past years. But one of the things that we've done in our rankings, and unfortunately for your viewers, the much better looking Coach Ray and the funnier Ant could not be here. But in our rankings, we talked about that. Okay, Gorman has a potential to go 0-3, but are they still the best team in the state? Because look who they're playing. Unfortunately, they didn't go 0-3. They beat a very, very good Orem, Utah, the second best team out of Utah, who beat the week before. Orem beat Canyon Springs 41-14.
Yeah.
And then Canyon Springs comes back and beats who we had ranked in our top 10, Green Valley, 3-0 team, beats them. So you really get to think like, all right, maybe Gorman isn't the Gorman they were in 2013, 15, 16, but they're still the team to beat until somebody proves them otherwise.
Well, first of all, Gorman is not going to ever dodge anyone.
Sure.
And they look for these high octane programs to either go on the road to play or play at home, and and they want to play the best, and to be the best, you actually have to play the best.
Absolutely.
But I think that the sheer number of that first game against Mater Dei, and again, no, this is not to say that they lost to a slouch program. Mater Dei, arguably one of the best programs in the country.
Defending national champions last year, and they're ranked preseason. Most polls have them either 2 or 3. With IMG out of Florida being number 1, they play each other in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So. And
so they did, and then they went down to Centennial, and I think that the people were starting to, maybe if there was any panic, was because the TD that they did put on the board was at a really kind of a last.
Yep. So I believe 9 seconds left in the game, and
they almost were going to go 2 games without scoring a point,
which would be unheard of. Would be
major power outage
really
as
unreal.
far as. But they go up to Orem and Utah, and again, Orem number 2 in Utah, which makes you definitely no slouch, but number 29 in the country.
Yep.
And they beat them, and because I was honest with you, I really thought that Orem was going to not beat them soundly, but they were going to beat Gorman.
Yeah.
And I was but in a way, I was always going to root for the local team, and I was glad to see them come through.
Yeah, we always root for the local team, and I mean, we don't bet with our hearts, as we like to put it. So when we do our weekly picks, I believe only Anthony was the only one who picked Gorman to win that Orem game. We thought for sure they were going to lose, but all that said, Gorman travels to Concord de La Salle this week, and they're the number 12 team in the country. Actually,
another
number 10.
high-octane California Jesuit school.
Yep. So they, if they can pull off that victory, no, they're not going to be national champs this year. But a lot of that conversation of is Gorman done for would be dismissed.
Well,
with
once
a victory
again,
here.
it becomes it really puts the shine on Las Vegas Prep football, where it's not just Gorman where people are coming to look at talent. And one of the things that Jeff and I both, and as well as Ben, and hats off to the public schools also.
Absolutely.
Playing these high octane teams from out of state or going out of state to play these teams. I was very happy to hear that the Canyon Springs took that trip up to Utah to Orem.
And that was a huge game. And actually, Canyon Springs also, they will travel to Concord, California to play Clayton Valley up there. They played last year. They came here, and now this year Canyon Springs is going
Concord
up there.
School,
the other Concord school. But and it's not even them. Obviously, Faith Lutheran has emulated a lot of what Gorman has done. This year they played Valor Christian, Bakersfield Christian, and they'll be playing J. Sarah Catholic, another Southern California power.
Yeah.
But Arborview, you have Arborview, who for years was sort of right behind Gorman in the Sunset. And this year they scheduled 3 out-of-state games. They beat a really good Valencia, California team, which finished, I believe, second in one of the championship games there in California last year. But they scheduled some big games, and when you see those, and you see Canyon Springs and Liberty, of course, Liberty this last week. They lost handily to IMG. That said, Liberty was missing their starting quarterback and their backup quarterback, and IMG is no doubt one of the best in the country. But they always say they take those challenges to prepare for Gorman. You're never going to get past that Gorman hump if you're not playing Gorman caliber teams. So for us, I'm happy to see whether it be Desert Pines. They travel to Reno. One of the awesome things that happened this year is the interstate is a natural rivalry. You have Reno and Vegas, Southern Nevada, Northern Nevada. Foothill went up and played Galena, and then Lowry went up, and Pahrump Valley went up and played Lowry, and then Desert Pines went up and played Bishop Manogue, and they all represented Southern Nevada really well and went 2-1 in those games, and Desert Pines beating Bishop Manogue was definitely a very big welcome back to the 4A for Desert Pines. We didn't think they were going to do it, and they let us know that we didn't think they were going to do it, but we're proud that they did.
Well, that Desert Pines program has just been on the uptick, for about the last 5 years.
Absolutely.
And they've had that upward trajectory. And but I think at the same time we're 10 years ago it was the public schools sort of waiting to see who's going to be the cannon fodder to play Gorman.
Yeah.
And that was it. Now it's reaching out to these other programs and saying, hey, we want you to come to town, or we'll go to see you.
Absolutely.
But that gets them, hey, look, because we know that there are lots of programs like Gorman, but they're around the country. Not in state.
Yeah. I think one thing you really got to give credit to, Liberty High School was the first public school who really took that concept and said, okay, we're going to schedule some big teams. They started out playing Crespi, California, and playing some other big programs, and they ended up going to Westlake, Texas a couple of years ago and beating who was then I believe the number 1 or number 2 team in Texas. And they really, and then Faith Lutheran followed suit. Now you see some of the other schools doing so. And anytime there's the one thing I really love about our high school community here, anytime a team is playing an out-of-state team, you see players that grew up playing in the youth leagues together, that they compete on Friday nights, but they're rooting for those schools to represent the city and put on for Nevada, put on for Las Vegas. So it's nice to watch.
Yeah, but Rich Morocco, who we've had on the show before, and he's never been shy about wanting to ensure that his guys see tough competition.
He's a great coach, to tell you. We really love Rich, and there's some great coaches out there. It was Coach Isola at Legacy or Barneson at Arborview, and when we talk about Desert Pines, Tico Rodriguez has done great work with them, and going into this season, they actually lost a lot of talent. They had 3 guys move out of state. Jordan Butler moved to IMG Academy in Florida, and he actually played for them this last week. You had Jaden King move and Michael Lofton move, and that's a lot. I mean, I don't care, even if I were Gorman with that talent, that would have hurt to lose. So for Desert Pines to still come out and not only say, hey, we're going to compete in the 4A, but we just beat arguably the second best team in Northern Nevada by 13 points in Reno was a real hi, we're here, and we're going to compete for that 4A.
Here. I mean, I think sometimes we've been accused of, rooting against Gorman, which couldn't be further from the truth. I think that there's always a soft spot in our heart for public schools because Jeff and I both went to public schools.
True.
And I grew up in Southern California, where you had the modern days, where you had the Verbum days, where you had the Bishop Amats, where you had, and you could kind of see the pious, the 12th. Yeah. These are they're high octane programs, but you also had programs like Long Beach Poly, who were not afraid of playing anyone, anywhere,
historically
anytime.
Great high school football program.
And when there was this kind of a push to try and maybe get the private schools in their own division within the state of California, it was Long Beach Poly who absolutely voted against it and said, no way.
We want that competition.
We want that competition. And I went to Inglewood High. Never really been a great powerhouse, but our rivalry, crosstown rivalry, was Morningside High School. And but it's high school football. It's Friday night. We always implore people, look, there's a reason why you see those banks of lights around the valley on Friday nights. Go out, support a high school team. chances are they can probably really use your dollars and
Absolutely.
buy food, because the food, those monies tend to go directly
Cents, yeah.
directly into. But you're going to see some great football, and I think everybody if you went to high school, you loved high school football on Friday night.
Yeah, for the most part, there's a lot of that, and it's not. I mean, there's obviously Gorman, very talented, Liberty and Arborview, and you have some really really talented teams with some Division I, players that are just super talented. But even if you go to a basic Foothill game, and Foothill's got a couple of very good Division I prospects, but you see the crowd, you see Green Valley against pretty much anybody. Green Valley stands are always packed. And, every team deserves that support. Canyon Springs and Chaparral and Valley, Bonanza, Clark, all those teams, if you're in the neighborhood and you haven't been to a football game in a while, just go out on a Friday night. Support these kids.
It's fun, and, we here at Southern Nevada Sports News, we love to support our prep sports, not just football, but prep sports here in general in Southern Nevada, because the proximity of these schools, who you work with, chances are there's somebody, if you reach out to one of your fellow employees and ask them if they have somebody, they will know somebody who is playing football, or basketball or baseball on the local school, and probably could just use your help. Surprises this year. I know it's still early, but who kind of rises to the top as like, never saw this coming?
Well, I'll be honest. A lot of people when they were looking at doing a 5A with the NIA, they voted to not do it and keep the 4A, 3A format. With Desert Pines moving up to the 4A, a lot of people thought, okay, they're going to struggle to adjust. They're going to have a hard time. They're still going to be talented. They're still going to be good, but I'll tell you what, the victory they had against Bishop Manogue up in Reno, Bishop Manogue's got one of the best running backs in the state, Peyton Dixon up there. They really spoke volumes that not only are they going to contend to, be a successful team in the 4A, but they're going to contend for that Northeast League title, and we'll see if they can even compete for the Mountain title to represent the South against the North.
Wow.
So we'll see them. Faith Lutheran and Arborview have a lot to say about that, probably, in Canyon Springs as well. And I'll tell you what, I think probably the biggest surprise this last week in particular, Canyon Springs beating 3-0 Green Valley, and Desert Pines beating Bishop Manogue, really said, hey, the Northeast is, for the first time in I can't tell you how long, has more than one competitive team. Generally they've had one team that went, whether it was during Las Vegas's reign or when Canyon Springs took over, but at most you maybe had one team that got out of the first round of the playoffs. Yeah. And this year, nope, the Northeast is coming. It's coming to play, so it'll be exciting. Sierra Vista's another really good team. They've got Jordan Polo at quarterback. Jordan Solomon is a younger brother of Anu Solomon, who was Gorman's quarterback. And there's some really good teams. There's some really good players. There's some teams that you maybe, they're not powerhouse teams, but they have some really excellent players. Cimarron Memorial has one of the best running backs in the state, Jordan Norwood, who was our player of the week a couple weeks ago. He's averaging somewhere around 250 yards rushing a game. Cameron Wiley at Desert Pines. You have so much talent in this town, and a lot of them, whether it be Liberty or Arbor or Desert Pines, they have those Division I scholarship offers, and a lot of them don't yet. And one of the reasons we started our podcast and started what we did is to try to give everybody credit, whether you're from a little 3A that's 0-8 or whether you're Gorman, but also to help some of these kids get some more attention. And we have so many talented players, and whether they can play Division I or 2 or 3. Any ticket that gets them an education and opportunity, we're hopeful that they can get that.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. It's one of the reasons why we also like to have Ben on the show. Yep. Aside from the great beard that we all wish we could grow and manage, it is what he's doing with his program in terms of the videos and setting those up.
His highlights are something else. I'll tell you.
They really are. My goodness gracious. Yeah. And I think his problem right now is there's just not enough of him. to get around.
Yeah, with his highlight, and it's funny, when he first came on, and I met up with him, and I was looking at his YouTube channel, and he had curling highlights from a curling event, and I said, man, this guy made curling exciting in his highlight videos. Like, I don't care, I'm gonna pay him to watch me mow my lawn and make a highlight video of it because he's so good at the highlights. But having guys like Ben and another one, Canyon Springs this year has a graphic artist, and we're trying to get her name. that has just stepped up their game so excellently, and really, really happy for Canyon Springs and their program and that school. They do great things over there, and other programs. Mojave is another team that comes to mind that's been doing. Obviously, they're some of those schools are in areas that maybe socioeconomically aren't able to compete with some of the other
Right.
things that other schools have. And principal at Mojave has done a great job, and they've got some talent. Kamarion Philogene, who's their quarterback, is one of the top quarterbacks in the state, and a lot of people didn't know about him until this year. I mean, some people did,
Yeah.
but now they're starting to get to know. So
I think that if you're you're a top prep athlete here, going into high school, or if you're, and I believe that, I think that there really is only one Bishop Gorman in town.
True.
And that that roster is can only expand so much.
It's true.
But you have options here, and I think that's why we're starting to see the level of play, because now a lot of these kids have been playing against each other in youth programs, but it's like, well, wait a minute, I don't need to necessarily go to Gorman.
Right.
And if I do, am I going to be a third or fourth string quarterback?
Yeah.
I can just, walk to school.
Absolutely.
And be starting every week.
Yep.
And there's, and they're all kind of building these programs around that kind of philosophy.
Yeah. Well, you look at a team like on the private side, like Faith Lutheran.
Yeah.
And they've started emulating, like I said, a lot of what Gorman has done. And Coach Vernon Fox has done a great job. There was an article in the Review Journal a few weeks ago. He talks about his number one goal is to help build good young men. Football is second.
It is. It's secondary.
It's awesome to see what he's done over there. But whether it's Liberty or Arborview or any of these other schools, people are starting to notice that Gorman has a lot to offer, facilities and scheduling and exposure. But because of the attention they've brought to this valley from college recruiters, and the games that Liberty's scheduling, the games that Faith Lutheran or now Arborview are scheduling, if you're good, you can go to a lot of your local schools and get just as much exposure. Or, hey, you might play Gorman in the state championship or state semifinal or playoffs, and throw your highlight film out there when you played them.
There it is, because first of all, I mean, we, it's there's always going to be great film in a 77-0 route, but at the end of the day, it's going to be, well, who are you playing?
Exactly.
If you're a punt returner and there's 300-pound guys on punt coverage,
it's going to speak. It's going to speak volumes.
Kind of speaks volume as to why you ran 4 back.
Yeah.
So, but we're going to take a quick break, and I'm hoping that you can stick around.
I will if you'll have me.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. We still got more football to talk about. Southern Nevada Sports News coming to you from WWDBTV.com. We'll be right back.
The golf store you've been waiting for is now open. Bob Allen Golf is ready to help you take your game to the next level. Bob Allen Golf is located at 6415 South Fort Apache, Las Vegas 89148. Choose your favorite clubs from our selection of Bridgestone, Callaway, Cleveland, XXIO, Srixon, Ping, Wilson, and more. We'll custom fit them in our state-of-the-art full-swing golf simulator. Come hang out with us and practice on our putting green to find out which club is perfect for you. Have your clubs repaired, reshafted, and regripped in our on-site tour shop. And talk about accessories. Guys and gals will feel comfortable and look sharp in the many sizes, colors, and options of apparel from Greg Norman, Black Clover, Under Armour, and more. The team at Bob Allen Golf takes your game as seriously as you do. Join our online family at BobAllenGolf.com and stop in the store to meet us. Remember, at Bob Allen Golf, your game is in the bag.
Is life so hectic that you just don't have time to get all those projects around the house completed? Well, worry no more. Tinker's Handyman Service is here and ready to help you. Tinker's is a company you can depend on to be honest and reliable. What sets us apart from other companies? It's simple. We care. Our reliable staff will help you with drywall repair, painting, popcorn ceiling removal, laminate and engineered wood flooring, also accent walls, crown molding, baseboard installs, cabinet and door repair, minor electrical and plumbing repairs, and more. Visit Yelp to see rave reviews from our satisfied customers. Call or text us today at 702-445-4812 for a fair and honest free estimate. Let Tinker's Handyman Service give you the free time you deserve. That number again is 702-445-4812. We're waiting for your call.
We are back. Round 2, the knockout rounds. Southern Nevada Sports News coming to you from WWDBTV.com. And I'm still happy that Victor Perea has agreed to stay with us to the end of the show. This was really the first opportunity we've had to talk about, high school football, just in terms of once it's gotten started and where some of the teams are at. And as we discussed, some of the surprises, how do you see some of these divisions panning out? I mean, who do you see kind of staying consistent and holding course?
In the Southwest League, you're Gorman by far the favorite. But one of the things that really the Southwest hasn't had, except maybe 1 year, I believe, when Desert Oasis won, they were the number 2 seed out of the Southwest. It's always been the second, third, and fourth place in the Southwest losing the first round to the Northwest. This year, Sierra Vista and the Solomon brothers really give Sierra Vista a good shot to advance in the playoffs, and they'll be playing the Southeast League instead of the Northwest. So there's some really interesting matchups over in the Southeast, whether it be Foothill or Green Valley, that are really talented football teams, and they have an opportunity. Obviously they're looking at Liberty, who's, I believe, 8-time Sunrise Region champion, but they have an opportunity to make some noise. And in the Northwest, it's always been tough. Shadow Ridge is up and coming, and Palo Verde's resurging. They've had a couple of down years, Palo Verde has, but Arborview and Faith Lutheran are definitely the top 2 dogs, but Shadow Ridge and Palo are going to be fighting for those 3rd and 4th place finishes, as well as Cimarron Memorial.
Yeah.
So there's going to be the playoffs this year are going to be fun, whether it be first, second round, or whether we go all the way to state and look at the potential matchups between the North and the Mountain Region winner, or the potential matchup between Liberty and Gorman in the Desert Region.
Well, as you mentioned, league play be starting technically next week.
Right.
Yeah.
For most teams, yeah.
For most teams, and that's really when it counts. That's when you kind of separates the rubber from the road.
Yeah. One of the things we mentioned in our podcast this last week is for, let's say you're Sierra Vista. Sierra Vista started out 0-2, and they got their first win over Kaimuki, Hawaii last week. Or if you're Durango and they started out 0-3, but they kept a game pretty close to Basic. They lost by 1 point, and Desert Pines they lost, I believe, by 6. If you're 0-3, everybody's 0-0 in league right now.
That's it.
So
that's the beauty of league play.
Yep. Now they're going to start to matter.
Yeah, and you could even if you're getting clocked, sometimes just by very tough programs. I mean, it's difficult, I think, for most schools to schedule what you would consider a cupcake in high school football. This is not like Alabama scheduling Arkansas State, which they seem to do a lot of. But it's also not UNLV inviting Howard University. Had to put that out there because my cousin Justin is a sophomore this year, and he was on that freshman team that came into town last year that upset UNLV.
Yeah, give him credit, man.
He's doing great. 3.8 GPA, sophomore, and go get him, Justin. And their opening game against Ohio had them, but lost 38-32. And this is a game that Ohio was, I think, favored by 20, if I'm not mistaken. And again, this is not the team I think that they want to keep inviting in.
And I'm glad you mentioned his GPA. One of the things that we love at 702 High School Football is we'll get players that will tweet us their highlights or email us or message us, and we always ask, hey, what's your GPA? What's your core GPA? Or if you took your ACT or SAT, what was your score?
Right.
As every once in a while we'll have a college coach email us or ask us, hey, what about this player? Or what do you know about this guy? I love when that player says, oh, by the way, I have a 3.9 or I have a 3.7, or maybe last year I had a 2.3, and that's what we have that they gave us last year, and this year, hey, we got it up to a 3.0, and it's been really awesome when we have those situations. Foothill, as a matter of fact, I believe Jordan Blakely, who's committed to Air Force, a great article in the paper the other week about him. He scored a 16 on his ACT, which is well below the standard that the Air Force requires, and he went to work. He just went to hit the books hard and spent all summer doing that, retook it, got a 31 out of, I believe, 35 or 36. Almost doubled the score.
Yeah,
when we see something like that,
that's making it happen. When we have kids in here, we always ask them about their GPA.
Absolutely.
And and you'll look over at the parents and the family, and they'll be,
Yep.
That's the thing that that they are, and we're so happy to see that. there's always going to be enough people out there that are, grabbing hold of these kids and trying to, make, a gravy train or a cash run
Right.
out of them, get them into school, get them into the pros, and maybe they'll buy me something.
Yeah.
But, so many of the kids that we see come through here have got the family that are behind them 100%, but also have got them pointed in the right direction.
And I know you guys have had Kenyon Oblad, who's over at UNLV, and Bo Taylor, who's committed to UCLA. Great kids, on and off the field. Both of those kids are kids that you really won't hear a bad thing about. But it's and one of the things that we focused on this year, we really want to make sure we focus on rewarding our student athletes for everything they are, students and athletes.
Right.
So we're real fortunate. We had a lot of extra more sponsors that came on for our podcast this year, and it's allowed us to give a little bit more significant prizes. And on top of the regular Player of the Week prize, one of the things we're going to be doing this year is giving away a 20-hour SAT or ACT tutoring session, because we feel it's very important.
Yeah.
We can't just sit and tell these kids, hey, good job on the touchdown, good job on the field, if we're not also supporting what they need to do, which is hit the books. And we always say, you hear the kids say, secure the bag. And for us, secure the bag is get a scholarship, get a degree, and if you get on the field, great. If you make it to the league, wonderful. But at the very least, when you make that decision, it's not a 4-year decision. It's a 40-year decision.
Yeah.
It's going to open up opportunities for you. So
absolutely,
we want them to be prepared.
We try to encourage them that the job that you're going to have for the majority of life is not going to be carrying a ball, dribbling a basketball, or hitting a baseball.
Exactly.
It is going to be doing a 9-to-5 job, a straight job.
And entrepreneur.
Make it something that when you get up in the morning, you look forward to doing.
Yeah. As they say, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Which
here.
Which I hear is true.
Yeah.
But that's I know we have some really, really wonderful, talented kids athletically, but some really great students and some really good people. And like we always try to mention, especially when we talk to our coaches, is these guys aren't just helping mold the next linebacker, the next quarterback. They're molding future parents, future spouses, future entrepreneurs, bosses, employees, and you want to give a product that represents our city and the program well, and
just
we've got some bright spots.
Citizens of the world.
Exactly.
Which is you can always hope, and then and I think for the most part there are a lot of very, very good kids here in town.
Absolutely.
And and they're all working hard. They're striving for something.
Yeah,
and to now see where people rank prep sports in Las Vegas in general.
Oh yeah.
You just see them disperse, with these, scholarships to not just Division I, but Division II and Division III.
Absolutely.
Schools, and listen, a 4-year degree from a Division II or Division III school is worth just as much as a D1 school, and it, oftentimes if you're getting a scholarship to those programs, those kids are usually going there 4 years.
Absolutely.
And they're graduating at a much higher rate.
Absolutely.
And so but hats off. To you and what you guys are doing.
I appreciate it.
702 high school football, man.
We're trying. We do it because we love them, and we just want the best for these kids, man. We want them to succeed and come back and not forget where they're from, but to make it and move on to bigger and better things wherever it may be.
Here. So we've got a few more minutes left. So UNLV.
Yes.
Nice win this past weekend.
And a sigh of relief, especially as you already mentioned the Howard loss last year.
Yeah.
we knew we were supposed to have, but you know what? Even going back to that first game against USC.
Yeah.
Obviously, you look at the final score. Somebody might say, "Well, that's a moral victory." I'll take a moral victory. You're playing USC at USC, and you're only down by 5 heading into the fourth quarter, and you're UNLV, who a year earlier was losing to Howard.
Yeah.
I think Tony's done a great job. They've got some good staff over there, and they've got Coach Manny's their strength and conditioning coach, was formerly at Gorman, which you won't hear anybody say a bad thing about him. And to see the amount of local kids over there, Alex Perry, who was actually at ASU, transferred back here. You got Zach Zinger, you got Greg Oliver. You have so many local players, and I love seeing local players represent their hometown. We're really kind of hoping Kenyon Oblad made it on the field this last week, and I understand Tony wants to kind of save him, and he might be redshirting this year, but we'll see more and more local kids take an active role in making UNLV a winning program.
Well, I know that Jeff and I are both in agreement where we feel that this is a year where UNLV turns the corner and that they are bowl eligible. And and then that next year, of course, you start to look at this recruiting class that he can point to the new stadium and saying, how would you like to play in this stadium on Saturdays?
I can't imagine that's not going to be a big selling point, for the obvious reasons. But I think Tony. One of the things that Tony, a lot of people maybe when he first got the position said, "Oh, is it the right move? Is it the right person?" And maybe some people doubted taking a high school coach into college. But one of the things nobody that knew Tony doubted was he could pitch a program. He could recruit like no other. And and I believe he's a good coach as well. And it's worked out in UNLV's favor. It comes in bits and pieces, And I know I don't want to be the pessimist, but every year we sort of say the same things as locals. This is the year, and we're gonna. But I think there's been victories here and there, and hopefully the bright spots, the running game that they've shown at USC. I believe they put up 300 yards rushing against USC.
Yeah.
I don't care what the final score is. If we're looking for positives as a program, okay, we're not on USC's level. Conference, we're not at USC's level in recruiting or booster support, but man, if we can put 300 yards on USC, okay.
Yeah, what do you think you can do against
bowl game might happen this year?
I believe so, and and again, it is taking patience, but I think that this is their year. They really turn that corner, and then it takes a lot of the heat off of a really nice guy in Tony Sanchez. Yeah, and I think it's a much easier recruit for in-state players who are familiar with, because if on the outside looking in, you think I want my son wandering around on the strip, and, and strip clubs, and all these hikes here getting drunk on game night before game. No, because I think that more people here understand the boundaries that exist.
Exactly.
So he's got a hard sell, but let's face it, getting that stadium in, and some of the changes they've made to the infrastructure. That is going to absolutely change things.
Yeah, it's been huge. And even going back, one of the things, maybe previous coaches definitely didn't do is highlight parts of what made Las Vegas. But Tony went right to it, and I think he found a way to make sure parents knew, look, yes, this is Las Vegas. No, your kids are not going to be walking up and down, the strip or doing this, thing every Friday night. But let them know, look, there's a lot of industries here where we have the best hotel management school in the nation at UNLV.
And there's a reason
and look
why.
at all the business opportunities. Exactly. So I think he embraced Las Vegas and wasn't ashamed of saying, hey, we are Las Vegas.
Yeah.
But he also did it in a way that, hey, your kids are going to be in good hands. Your kids are going to be able to succeed in the classroom, on the field, and everybody's rooting for him.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. And, and again, I think that I'm not sure who they've got up for this weekend.
You know what? I've been too busy checking our. I can tell you everybody in the high school that's playing.
Well, yeah, well, you've got that's enough work in itself. So I completely understand that. Again, we've got the NFL season off and running.
Yes, we do.
Very quickly, as the question we always ask, and we want. I know it's only week 2 that we're going into. We want you to pick who's going to win the AFC, who's going to win the NFC, and ultimately who is going to win the Super Bowl.
As cliche as and being a former Dolphins fan, I hate to say it, but I'm still going to pick the Patriots to win the AFC.
Okay.
Well,
it's tough to root against them.
Yeah. It's I hate to do it, but the way I always looked at it when I was a Dolphins fan is, if we're getting beat by the Patriots twice during the season and they go on and win the Super Bowl, at least we can say we lost to the Super Bowl champions.
To the Super Bowl champs.
Yeah, and then the NFC I think is more of a question mark there. Now the Eagles still make a very strong case, but it's so early. And what's funny with the Week 1 results, you have all this preseason games, and you still don't necessarily know what's going to show up Week 1.
No.
Yeah.
No.
But I'm if I had to pick a team right now to win the Super Bowl, I'm going to say the Patriots. Just because that's it.
It's no problem. We've had quite a few people pick the Patriots.
Probably had worse picks, I'll say. Somebody might come on here and pick the Browns.
We haven't had that. I can assure you we have not had any, including our friend from Cleveland.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so, no, but.
They were honest then.
Victor Perea, thanks again, man.
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate you guys.
702 HSFB, high school football. Go to their website or Twitter. If you want the 411 on local high school sports, and by all means support your local high school. Trust me, there's one within walking distance probably of where you live. Join us next Wednesday, September 19th, 6 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time for another installment of Southern Nevada Sports News coming to you from WWDBTV.com. Have a great week.